Hey, everybody, welcome to our second conversation here about approaching the end of year giving space. In other words, how do we secure the resources that we need to fulfill the mission that God has given us to lead? And this week, we're going to focus on actually how to make an ask. Now, I know that always sounds sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes scary, but it doesn't need to be. I want to both inspire you and give you some great tips that I've learned over 20 years of doing it personally that will help you be more successful as you ask for those large gifts to support the ministry that you lead. So the first thing I want to start with is just the most common mistakes that people make. So this is like what not to do at the very, very beginning. And the first one is not doing enough homework, not doing your research to know what is the heartbeat of the person who is investing in the mission of the ministry that you lead. We were just talking as we got oriented here today about our ministry Unique. The whole goal of Unique is to help people be able to articulate their calling and what they're passionate about in God's kingdom work. And so that is a wonderful tool to help understand what is it that drives me, what fuels me in life, what am I passionate about, what's the ultimate contribution that I feel called to make, and do you know that? If you don't, then you're going to need, before you make an ask, before you ask them to invest in the mission, you need to spend time getting to know them. Coffees, lunches, interview, talk to people who have known them for a long time in the community. What have they invested in over time? Ask them directly, what do you care about? What do you want to be known for? What legacy do you want to leave? But make sure that you have a really good understanding of what each person is fueled by, what aspect of building or furthering the kingdom through your work and your ministry or your church really excites them. It's critical to know that before inviting them to join you in that mission. So that's the first mistake to avoid. And we spoke a little bit about ways to do that in the last webinar, which I'm sure you can watch on replay. All right, the second mistake that you want to avoid is, and I see this all the time, is not setting up your environment. In other words, you need to be in the right place, like physical place. Why is that? One, you want to be in a place that is comfortable for the person who is considering making a large gift. So you don't want to go to a place they've never been before. They'll be looking around at the environment, trying to see if they're secure or they're just distracted. You may want to do it in a place that they are familiar, always a place they're already familiar, but it may have to do with the mission that you lead. So it could be in your church. It could be among the type of people that you are called to serve if you're leading a ministry, but just make sure it's a familiar place. And finally, it's a place where you will not be interrupted. You don't want a waiter coming right as you're about to extend that invitation and saying, hey, would you like dessert or something like that? So really control your environment. I really prefer their home. I like going to their home and inviting them to participate in the ministry of the church that I lead. Homes are private, they are familiar, they're intimate, and can completely control distractions, except for dogs. Sometimes I have been interrupted by dogs jumping on me, but that's great. I love dogs, but in general, it's a great place to ask. So carefully consider your environment, construct it. That's a really big thing to do. All right. So the third mistake that you want to avoid as you prepare to make a really big ask is overlooking the need to have a relationship with that person. So even more than just knowing what is it that fuels them, you really need to demonstrate that you care about them as a person and you care about the contribution or the legacy that person wants to lead through an actual human relationship. If it's transactional, you're not going to be successful, especially at the large gift, in the large gift space. You can be transactional with giving when people are fueled by, let's say, we'll talk about dogs again. Let's say they're fueled by, caring for neglected or abused animals. They can make a transactional gift of $100 or something like that. But if you're talking about a large gift, when you get into the tens of thousands of dollars or more, people give to people. So the relationship really matters. So think about, have you spent enough time developing the relational equity that you need to extend that invitation to support the mission or ministry of your church or your ministry? Super important. All right, don't rush it. Really don't rush it. I want to lean into this a little bit. You will wind up with a greater investment in your mission or ministry if you do this work versus going too fast to the ask. We'll unpack that a little bit more as we go on. All right, last mistake that will prevent that great connection together is not preparing. When I was first doing this type of stewardship work, we had a template that we had to write out every one of our exploratory questions, our relational connection, the things we were going to talk about or say, our transitions. We wrote them out. How are we going to transition from that introduction, sometimes called small talk, to why I'm here today, and writing out the specific ask that I'm going to make, the dollar amount, and the connected point. What's the narrative arc to how we got here today? What's the impact it's going to create? I mean, writing it all out. As I became more fluid in this process over the years, I didn't have to do as much writing, but I would still bullet point the arc of the meeting, the things that were important to address, and how I was going to get through it. This is another reason I don't care to do this type of work over meals if possible, is because I'm going to need to hold the tension and hold the attention and hold the room for a while. And it's just more challenging if you're at a coffee shop or having lunch because of the just normal activity of having a coffee and eating. It chops things up. I tend to say, can we meet and then go have lunch? Or have lunch and then go back to your home and have a conversation. So preparing that in advance, knowing what the transitions and the ask is super important, not something you want to do just off the cuff. And finally, the most important preparation of all is submit it to prayer. I would pray over all of my people, not my will, Lord. This is not about me. It is, are you moving in the hearts and the minds of the people that you have put me in relationship with? And will your will be done through the release of these resources to fuel the ministry? Pray over them all humbly. And then it's such a great feeling to be like, Lord, I'm giving my best and it's your will that's going to get done. So it's never a no to me. It's just a yes to something else that person may feel more called to support at that time. So prepare, ask well by preparing well. All right. So those are common mistakes. If you have a question as I'm going along or would like me to stop and we can have a conversation, just throw it in the chat. I'll be happy to do that. But seeing none at the moment. Oh, and by the way, in the chat is the link to the handout for this week. You're welcome to download that. I'll have a few notes from what I'm about to go over here for you, and something you can always share with other colleagues in ministry. All right, so let's go to 6 steps. These are 6 steps that you want to pay attention to when you're asking for a significant gift. Now, significant is relative. I have been in ministry contexts where significant started above 50,000 and went all the way into the millions, 7 and 8 figure gifts. And I've had other places where a significant gift is $1,000. So that's completely relative to your context and your culture, but you decide what that is. And then here are some things you want to know when you ask for those significant gifts. Okay, so number one, the first thing that I encourage you to pay attention to is to create your list of the people that you're going to ask personally. You want to ask people who, so we always say in this work, who's the right person to ask for that gift to support the mission that you lead? Sometimes it's you. If you're the pastor of a church or the leader, CEO, executive director of a Christian ministry, it often is you. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a peer. So that could be a lay leader, elder, board member, whatever your tradition calls your lay leaders. If you're leading a Christian ministry, it could be a board member. You want to create the connection, like who's going to have the most influence because they have the deepest relational equity with that person, and they will have the greatest ability to have a positive response to the conversation. So you need to think through that. So don't just assume I'm going to go ask all these people myself. Sometimes it's you. Sometimes it's somebody close to you that is the right person to ask. So you need to identify the right person to ask. I put on here couple because the science will show over and over and over again, if you're asking a family, a married couple for an investment in your mission or ministry, it is so significantly better to ask them together, meaning they're both in the meeting. They're there together. It's a funny philanthropic truism that women tend to control the direction of philanthropic giving. And so you always want to have the husband and the wife together. And again, it's about putting the right person in that space that's going to have the greatest influence on their decisions of where to invest their resources in ministry and in mission. So the other kind of aspect of identifying the right person or couple to ask is that, you want to have a sense of, does this person or does this couple have the financial capacity to make a gift of the size that I'm going to ask them for? And this can get a little tricky because, universities and huge philanthropic organizations, museums, things like that, have entire staff members that are dedicated to doing this research. Those of us at the local level of ministry, let me give you a few tips and tricks on this. Look up, just Google these people and see, are they making philanthropic gifts in your community and other places? Chances are, if they're making significant gifts, however you just define that, to other philanthropies or ministries or nonprofits, whatever you want to say, in your community, then that's a clue that they would be considering a gift of that size as well to what you're asking them to invest in. You can also look at just like indicators with respect to the type of homes they live in or neighborhoods they're invested in, things like that. That one's really tricky because oftentimes very, very humble people will live very modestly, but they prioritize being generous to ministry and mission. So you can't get that. History, look back at the history of your church. Where have the gifts come from in the past? And are they people that might be ready to give again? And if so, you can qualify them that way. So it's a little sleuthing, but you do want to make sure that you're asking the right people, if they're married together, with some sort of confidence that they have the capacity to make a gift in the size bracket that you're making. And I'll get to identifying the amount as well in a second. So that is step one. So that's a long one. It's so important. All right. So step two is the little icon in the heart, which is again back to this, like, know really well what type of aspect of your ministry really gets their heart pumping. So a local church is often engaged in lots of things. And while your mission might be broad enough to encompass all of the different things that you do, the person you're sitting down with to ask them for a significant investment in that mission, even if they're giving it generally, meaning I'm giving it to the church and the church can decide how to use those resources to further the mission and further the kingdom, they get their heart pumping based on something they're personally passionate about. What is that? Is it the children in the neighborhood who receive tutoring services in your church building Monday through Friday? Is it the ministry that you have to feed families who are going through a time of homelessness or unemployment? Is it the ministry that you have in India where you're helping girls be rescued from challenging situations and giving them an education and job training? Whatever it is, while we can generally love our church before our ministry and our mission, there is still a heartbeat there that this is something this person really cares about. It can absolutely be internal too, such as, I have led this Bible study for 20 years, and I really care about people diving in, studying God's word, and being in the work. That's great too. Just know what it is. Oftentimes you will already know because they are already invested with their hours and their talents in those things. But just, do your homework, ask around. If you are new to a church or a ministry, ask around, what is it that this person has done over the decades of being involved in your community? And see, you can often find really great clues to this based on social media. What do these people post about? Like, just go look at their LinkedIn and their Facebook and their Instagram or whatever, TikTok. But go look around and see, you'll know real quick what they're caring about, what they're passionate about, what gets their heartbeat going, and show up, not talking about what you need or want, but talking about what gets their heart going. That is so critical to making an ask for a significant investment in your ministry. So there you go. All right, that's number 2. Number 3, you're going to want to, step 3 is to ask for advice. So what do you mean by that? Don't ask me for advice, although you can when we hit the Q&A. But what I want you to think about is, how do you ask the person that you're sitting with for advice on how to better fulfill the mission of your church or your ministry? In other words, if you ask for money, oftentimes you'll get advice. Right? Let's play that out. So, hello, Mrs. Smith. You've been a long time partner with us at First Church, and we are looking to grow and reach young people, the next generation. Will you prayerfully consider investing in our mission with a gift of $50,000? You know what Mrs. Smith is going to tell you? You know what you should do? You should probably get, a worship band or whatever. The old adage is, don't ask for a gift or an investment before you ask for their advice. Mrs. Smith, we're looking at reaching the next generation in new ways. What would be a way that you think that we need to pay more attention to? How do you see us reaching the next generation today? And how can we leverage that for an even greater impact in our community? And then just listen. Unfortunately, as leaders, one of our natural postures is we need to be the expert in the room because we do it all day. And Mrs. Smith might not know our challenges, our obstacles, things we've tried and failed. It's okay. Invite Mrs. Smith to give you advice and then listen. And then reflect back that you've heard Mrs. Smith. We tried that and that didn't work, but that is such a great idea. Don't lie, but we've tried that And this is what happened. Maybe we need to think about that again in a new way. But people want to be valued for their personal investment, meaning their calling, their lives, their talents, their intellect. They don't want to be just reduced to money. So invite them in, ask them for their advice, reflect back that you're hearing it, and have a genuine, authentic, open posture to exploring what they say. So that is a great step. These are steps. This is how to get to that ask. So that's a really good one. All right, number 4, you want to then do the asking permission, in other words, for the ask. So one of the things that people don't like is feeling put on the spot. They just asked me for money. Psychologically, it's such an opening space. It opens it up. If you can create comfort by saying, may I ask you to, to consider, and then you're throwing out there whatever is, you've done your homework, right? So you know what they're interested in. So before you actually ask for an amount or a specific thing, you really are saying, like, may I now present to you or share with you or like lean into this space with you? And it's such a good disarming thing, because you're just managing feelings or fears in the room, whether they're valid or not, or you can't control how people are feeling. So you want to just give it that gentle space, and asking permission to ask is a really good thing. So can I tell you how your gift would be so helpful to our church at this particular time? Can I share with you my vision for where God's taking us next? Would it be all right if I took you on the story we've been over the last 18 months with COVID and where I see God opening up new opportunities? Because I just modeled 3 different ways to ask permission for you to eventually ask them to invest in your ministry. Right? So just start with, it would be okay if I share with you. Can I share with you the vision that God's put on me? Would it be all right if anything like that just takes down any fears or barriers, and people are always excited to hear what their pastor has to say about where God's leading the church. Or people who are really passionate about the ministry you lead, they want to hear from you about what's next. So I've never had a no when I've done that. So I feel confident you'll get the permission to share with them. All right. So then number 5, you've now kind of cast out where you're going. And then you don't want to ask them for money. You want to invite them to join you in that mission. Just repeating this, like, you're not saying, just give me your money and go away. It's a genuine saying, join me as we together live out the calling that we have to be the body of Christ, to fulfill the mandate of the gospel, to be the church for the world. And again, you can layer this with, there's that general, we're the body, but then you can layer it with the specificity of what you already know that gets their heart pumping. But you really do want to invite them to be a partner with you. And then the specificity comes in here because you want to ask, this is so critical, you want to ask for a specific amount of money. I know that can feel odd, but you want to tie the specific amount of money to the impact that it can make. With a gift of $25,000, we can such and such and such to your ministry or to your vision. With an investment of $100,000 together, we can do XYZ. All of this is true. It's all completely authentic. people respond when you invite them in to partner with you and you give them the clarity of those handlebars of, oh, okay, that tutoring ministry that we have at our church that's so important to the lives of students in our community needs $50,000 to keep going for the year. So now I have a handlebar for how $50,000 is going to help the ministry of the church. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean that $50,000 has to be completely designated to that ministry, but it's just helpful. So it doesn't stay in that abstract, amorphous space of amounts of money. So I always start with an amount. If they say yes too fast, I ask for too little. And then I can go back and say, hey, well, for another $25,000, we could do this too. You'll be surprised. It actually does work. If you put a number out there that's too big, don't worry. I've done that many times, and they'll just tell you, well, I can't do that, but I'll do this. And guess what? The second number they give you is more than they were planning to give before you asked. In other words, if I say $50,000 and they were planning on 10, they'll meet you at 25, 30, something like that, which was more than they were going to do without you showing up. So it's an invitation. Partner with me, give them a handlebar by asking for a specific amount of money. Always ask for a specific amount of money connected to the mission you're on and the vision you have. All right. And finally, step number 6. This is really great. Don't talk. For a while. Get used to really uncomfortable silence. The old adage in this is whoever talks first is the one that's going to walk away with what they came in with. In other words, if you make this ask, please join me as a partner in mission, and you've asked for $50,000 or whatever it is, $1,000, doesn't matter the number, but you've asked for it. Let them say the next thing, whatever it is. I don't care if you're sitting there for 4 silent minutes in awkward silence. Let them get their thoughts together. Don't put words in their head or in their mouth. If you talk first, they're off the hook for that consideration. Got to give the Holy Spirit room to move and just sit there. You're going to get a yes. You're going to get a not now or not that amount, but I'll do this or that. Then I always say a no is just simply an opportunity to figure out what does yes look like. But regardless of those outcomes, don't talk until there's a question asked back to you or a confirmation of the investment you've asked for. It's so hard. You're nervous. You're excited to walk out of there with another person on the mission train you're on. So you might have to practice this one a few times, but it's really an important tactic to practice as you engage in these conversations. Okay, those are my 6 steps to follow as you prepare to ask for a significant gift. Just remember, significant gifts are only given if you ask for them. Sometimes they just show up in the church's inbox, but most of the time, people are waiting to be invited into mission partnership with you. They think that you don't need them. They do. They think you don't need them and that you don't want them if you don't ask them. So give them the blessing of being able to join you on mission by preparing for the ask, asking well, and then allowing the Holy Spirit to do the work. All right. So for those of you who are watching this recording, that is the end of this. I'm going to stay on for the folks that are here live to answer questions, but thank you so much for joining. I hope this helps you as you think about resourcing the mission of your church or the ministry that you lead. May God bless you, and may the Holy Spirit move in powerful ways to fund your work. All right. If you are live on this, I will be happy to answer your questions. Hit it,
It was very clear. Thank you. Yeah, I found it helpful. I'm not actually in a church situation anymore. I just started working for an educational institution, Regent College, up here in Vancouver.
Oh, Regent, yes.
No, Regent? Yeah.
Yeah, my friend Brian Dunnigan went to seminary there.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, I'm actually just starting on a reframe project from a Lilly grant, looking at working with churches to do more vocational discernment for their congregants. So hence, I'm really excited about the unique connection there that I can do. But we're also helping churches experiment with their own innovations in that space. But nevertheless, so that's my context. But I just came out of a pastoral role. Unfortunately, was let go because of declines of giving in COVID. But my question coming out of that role is, so I've just come from a church in which their giving went down by 40%. Obviously, there's things you can't do about that. One of the things that I'm wondering about doing the ask is, in a situation like COVID, where your ministries are, uncertain, tenuous, all over the map about how they're actually functioning, and you have only in this church context, it's like a church under 200, very small selection of major givers, and so much of what is running is business as usual. Is there a way to do you have advice on doing the ask for, the same old, or is it better to try to think about an innovation of some sort?
It's a really good question, and I don't have enough context to provide a totally helpful answer, but I will say a couple of things in general about how people think about investing in mission, especially in a small church. People don't give to needs.
Okay, that's helpful.
Anywhere. Needs are overwhelming. There's so many needs in the world, their own needs, their neighbor, their family, their friends, the stray dogs, the environment, like the needs, it doesn't matter. They're just pounded by needs all day long.
Yeah.
So I had a chance to study with Dallas Willard for a little while, and I was being fussy about something, and he just looked at me. He's like, Kelly, the need is not the call. I was like, you're going to need to unpack that. He's like, nope. You're gonna have to live with that one. But you realize Jesus didn't meet everybody's needs either, right? Like he didn't heal everybody, he didn't feed everybody, he didn't.
Yeah.
So need is a really challenging place to lead from when you're asking for support. So if the church, I think it's less about, are we doing the same thing? And more about, is the posture that we're coming to you with is, I need you to support this. Because what people do support is life transformation. They do support anytime you touch a life. So think about it, like if they're supporting the local homeless shelter, they're supporting it because there's the demonstration of a life touched, a life transformed. Even if it's not completely transformed, there's a life that had a significant intervention provided at a critical time. They want to support, if it's not complete life transformation, it's the potential of it. So what I would say is, so for example, like I worked with a ministry that supported runaway teenagers. Many are leaving, like running away from opioid blights in our Midwest, and the communities there are poor, the parents are on drugs. Like it's just really a challenge right now. They're all coming to these big cities. And what do how do we help intervene in those situations? So you may not reach every teenager. The obstacles might be just so great, but the potential of literally transforming that life is there. So how does this apply to church?
So go ahead.
Well, how does this apply to church? Okay, so what I'm trying to say is if you can demonstrate that life transformation is happening in that 200-person community, and or the potential for life transformation is happening through the worship life and the body of Christ gathered, then yeah, you can, if same old is generating, your language, not mine, but is generating life transformation, people are coming into a saving relationship with Jesus. They are able to be, to name their call. They're able to make disciples where they live, where they work, where they play. Like that's happening. Then yeah, like go out there and ask for the support to continue doing that great work for Christ. If it's not happening, then that's the question I would ask is why? Why is our little local outpost of the gospel here as such and such church not transforming lives with the good news of Jesus Christ?
Yeah. I mean, and that's more of a church leadership strategic question, but in terms of framing the ask, the narrative then really matters in terms of, so it has to be personal, it has to be transformative, is what I'm hearing. And yes. And how much does it need to be specific? So like, would you tend to tell stories that of individual personal transformation, or would you tend to tell stories of kind of community impact stories? What's more effective?
The reason that World Vision scaled to the level of the largest global relief and development organization in the world is they unlocked the key of the single child sponsorship. When you get a statistic like there are 3.5 million kids in sub-Saharan Africa that are starving to death, will you help?
Yep.
You can't get your brain around that. But if you get in the mail the story of one girl and her struggle and her family struggle to have enough to eat, you immediately respond.
Right.
So you need to talk about how what you're doing is going to transform the life of a person, and the more personal the story and the more intimate the story, the better. People really, there's a lot of psychology to this, so feel free to Google it in the fundraising space. But like, for example, I worked for a Christian college for a long time doing this type of work. And we would not go to the alumni with, you can help, 2,000 students do it. You went to the alumni with, help another student have this life transformation you had here. Let me tell you about Alicia. Help Alicia have her education funded so she's not in debt. Everybody knows you make $25 gift to World Vision every month. It doesn't exactly go to one kid. It doesn't. Everybody knows that. It's just that that people's hearts can connect to that child's heart. They just can't connect to a number or a statistic.
No, that's good. I value your time, so cut me off at any time.
Sure.
So in terms of giving, can I jump to the time space instead? Because I'm just making the connections with, I think we're doing our volunteer ask all wrong as well. Do you find these same principles hold for volunteer time? Like say the proverbial, we don't have enough people in kids ministry kind of thing in church. And we tend to play off people's sense of obligation. We should have a children's ministry, right? We should value families. We might throw in a kids are cute, but it's very much an obligatory kind of ask often. Do you have any wisdom there? Do the same principles hold, or?
Yes, which is why we are so passionate about unique. The mistake that churches make is come volunteer for what we're doing. And what we strongly believe in is flipping that script. How can I appreciate the calling God's given to you in your life? And how can we as a church help you live that out in a way that it furthers the kingdom?
Okay.
So it is about, I think it's 100% about understanding, because you can say like, they don't even have to like kids. If you know what their heartbeat is, maybe they're just passionate about the word,
Right.
not just, you know what I mean? Maybe you got to find the angle to which, if they helped to serve, first of all, the word volunteer is challenge, right? If they will serve as a disciple, they'll live, with the children for a season, how does that help them? How does that connect to the passion that God's given them and to the heartbeat that they have? And once you connect those dots, it's really, really easy. But when you, when churches in general throw up the this is needs again, we need you to do this for us.
Yeah.
They don't see that as I'm a part of that. That's a you versus me thing. And nobody responds to needs. They respond to calling. And they respond to life transformation. So get out there and show how somebody, has a lifelong love of the Word of God because of the investment of Mrs. Vance, my third grade Sunday school teacher, who changed my life. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I'd still need an imagination for it, because I can imagine it for, I can actually imagine it for family ministry. Mm-hmm. What I can't imagine it for is recruiting for one-off events where you need someone to barbecue for 90 minutes because you're hosting a neighborhood bar. It's.
Yeah. So anyways. For there, two things. One, if the church is doing an event that the people don't want to provide by with their time and their energy, you shouldn't be doing it. Secondly, if the people do want to do it, then they should be asking each other.
But you have a coordinator, you have to organize it. How does that work?
Yes, but it's peer asks.
Okay.
I'm cooking burgers for 2 hours. Will you join me? I'll do the 2 to 4 shift if you do the 4 to 6 shift. That works every time. But getting up on the platform, or depending on your size of your church, the chancel steps and saying, hey, the sign up genius is online. We need all of you to come sign up. It's exhausting. You're tired. They're tired. They're on the defensive. Oh no, they're going to make me do something I don't want to do. They're automatically on the defensive, and you're exhausted because you feel like you need to have burger flippers every 2 hours.
Yeah. No, this is really valuable. I almost feel like, not that this is your job, but I'd totally go to a training on how to shift this kind of culture in a church, because it is a mind shift, right? The at least context that I came from, that's the main lever they pull, right? They pull from the pulpit.
This is the consulting that we do through our business pivot. This is exactly what we do. How to flip this script. We walk churches through it. We did create a course, an online on-demand course called the Future Church course. That's what that course does.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm planning to buy it soon. I think once I do that, I will have bought all your courses at that point.
Well, if you're interested, that is what the Future Church course does, is it walks you through this paradigm shift. And it is a paradigm shift. It is a new way of thinking. And if you haven't downloaded the Future Church book visual summary, it's free from our website.
I even own the book. I'm turning it into a Will Mancini groupie. Yeah.
That's great. That is what we do. We work all day about how to flip the script, how to tie a special calling to fuel the multiplication mandate of the gospel in your church. And part of what we do talk about here is this kind of stuff. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. Well, thank you so much. Yeah. I
Hey,
appreciate
it's great to see you.
Yeah. Good to see you too.
Yeah. And yeah, stay in touch. I would love to maybe we can meet sometime. We
Yeah, that'd be great.
yeah, we love to get around to the seminaries and colleges. So that would be fun.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Are you open to that sort of thing? I mean, like I said, we have some Lilly grant money here to do this equipping work with churches. And well, here's me doing the ask. What would it take to bring up someone to talk about the kind of vocational work that you guys are doing?
Just an invitation. Yeah,
Just
reach out to me.
an
My email is kelly@futurechurch.co.
Okay.
We'd love to talk. My Will and my husband and I are teaching a DMin course at Fuller next or 2 weeks from now.
Okay. What's the topic?
On this work, yeah, on leading churches in the postmodern context. Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So
Great.
we definitely love to come in and talk about this paradigm shift and how to lead in this. Now we would call it postmodern. Now it's the postmodern, post-COVID context. But yeah, so definitely just reach out to me. We can have a conversation.
Okay. Okay. Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, we're doing specifically vocational stuff with churches, but vocational discernment, but you guys have lots of skills there too. Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.